Welcome to the Asheville Transit Committee meeting on the third Tuesday of the month in City Hall from 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. Obviously, you're here. I really appreciate seeing a larger turnout, but I'm really enjoying seeing more and more people come in here. The Transit Committee is a volunteer citizen board designed to offer input and guidance to the Asheville Transit System and City Council. We do not set or change routes, control Asheville Transit's budget, or have authority over staff, drivers, or the management company. We are a group of citizens like you who are here to ensure community concerns are taken into consideration when setting public transit policy. So I think we're going to go ahead and just go around the room introducing ourselves, and then we'll move on to public comment after that. Oh, not right after that, but we'll just go ahead and introduce ourselves, shall we? Jeff, do you want to start?
Jeff Jones.
Harvey Harrell, retired Air Force.
Jen Brody, also serving on the Multimodal Transportation Commission. Lolly Smoker.
Dana Williams, Vice Chair.
Elizabeth Medlock.
Bruce Howard, also on the commission. Barry Riley, GM for Asheville.
Jessica Morris, Assistant Director of Transportation. Marcel Renee, Transit Projects Coordinator.
Awesome, all right. Well, we're sort of get started here. Let's go ahead and see, if everyone's looked over the agenda, do we have any issues with that?
I want a motion to add a report for the French Rod NPO. Do we have a member that's ready to present on that?
The best member will be here after 4 o'clock.
So it can be added to somewhere after 4 o'clock, maybe
Somewhere after 4.
operations updates or unfinished business.
I'm afraid if we get to unfinished business amount of time, we can go ahead and do it under operation updates, I think.
Or updates from other groups, we can put transit committee updates.
Okay, that was great. Do we have a second?
I second that.
All right, all opposed say aye. And all against? Okay, all right, so that's approved. And now we'll have to actually make a motion to the agenda approved by everybody. Motion for that?
So,
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Cool. All right. So we also have the minutes we've looked over. I'm assuming I just looked over those when I came in here. I don't have any issues. Does anyone else? Okay. Motion to approve minutes.
so
And any opposed?
Second.
No second. Thank you. All right. Let's move on then. So we have a public comment period now. We welcome public input in our meetings. You're allowed to comment on any matter under consideration prior to a final vote. If you have something to say, raise your hand and the chair will recognize you. There are also 2 public comment periods, one at the start of the meeting and one at the end, so if you think of something later you want to say. Any person addressing the committee is limited to 3 minutes. However, a group may have a single spokesperson who will be allowed 10 minutes. The committee will receive written information from any individuals or groups that cannot conclude their presentations within these time limitations. If you'd like to have an item discussed in more detail as part of our agenda, we ask that you speak with a member of the Transit Committee in order to have that item addressed during our next meeting. So does anyone have anything to say? I'd like to go first. Ready? If you just want to come up here.
Hello, Richie Rozelle, French Broad River MPO, and also coordinator for the Strive Beyond Drive campaign regionally. And I talked to you all about that before, but I just wanted to extend an invitation to the Transit Committee, and all city committees are invited to the Strive Beyond Summit, which is May 31st. And that's at Sierra Nevada, and we'll be talking about all things transportation and being very future focused to talk about a transportation system that starts to work regionally to meet all of our needs in addition to just Asheville. I did just want to update the group on the bulk of the Asheville Strive Week activities and thank the transportation staff while we're here for their assistance with some of those. We had a great run of events. We had 6 events over the course of the week, and those really were geared at turning out new folks into the conversation about multimodal transportation and included some bus-related events, some transit-related events, and the best and funnest that we had was this past Friday, and just to let you know how that shaped out, one of the electric buses that the city is introducing was on hand at in Belgian Brewing. We had a bicycle skills course that was very ambitious. It looked a lot like a cyclocross race, but it was not. And we had people who took on that course, and as the course, they loaded their bus onto the front, and they boarded the bus, they exited the bus, and they took the bus off the rack. And we took a little poll before that, and only 10% of the 50 or so people who participated in that had ever loaded their bike onto a bus, so a lot of people learned new skills that day, so that's success. And this event on the 31st is one that is more geared toward wonkiness and policy and growth. And so I hope you all attend that. Thanks.
All right, thank you. I'm actually going to go ahead and add that to my calendar. All right, anyone else go next?
Thank you for your work. I'm Amy Cantrell with Just Economics, and I want to take just the opportunity to welcome a new colleague, Carmen Navarro, who is going to be the new community organizer at Just Economics. And to let you know that I'm sort of leaving my role at Just Economics to take on a fuller work with We Love Asheville, which is the community I hope to found. And so after 7 years, I just want to say thank you for all the work that we've got to do together, and that I won't be a stranger. I'll continue to be a transit advocate and proponent, as I was just telling Richie, for particularly kids getting on the bus who my kids love the bus, so I think everybody should love the bus. And so finally, one of the things that I wanted to ask, particularly city staff as we move into budget season, want to thank Barry and the company, and the negotiations seem to have gone well, and really excited to have all the route reconfigurations coming into the street budget for the transit master plan. I want to thank the staff for all your hard work on that. It's been an effort of love, I know, to make that happen, and I know our riders are really excited about that. We are very hopeful to be able to advocate with the city council for extensions to service hours, because we know in a town where folks particularly have to work late hours to survive, that's really essential. So I'm hoping that we might get a very specific, some specific information around that, particularly each route and the new route reconfigurations and the proposed time in the transit master plan that route is to end. The proposed that was passed in July the 24th, and then how many more hours that is compared to now total. If we could get that, does that make sense? What I'm asking.
Maybe.
So each route, like the new crosstown, and then how we expect it to go to 10 p.m. on weeknights or 8 p.m. on
right.
Sunday. Like for each one of those routes, just what was proposed in the transit master plan.
So all of
and
that
how many total
information
hours.
is in Appendix A, I
Okay.
think, of the transit master plan. Every route, so if we were to do the hourly or the operations extension of hours, each route, there's a sheet for each route that shows the start time and end time.
Perfect.
Yeah, so,
And do we know the total number of hours that we would be having?
it's
Not
about,
including the reconfigurations, but just on top to get us to 10.
it's less than 20,000, more than 15, I can't remember the exact number.
Okay. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll look at Appendix A. This is one thing I love about, and I just want to thank you again, like for openness and transparency and responding to me in public comment. I don't always see it, and I really appreciate it in terms of the rest of the work in the city. So thank you for that. Thank you all for your work.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. All right, does anyone else have another comment?
Yes.
Go ahead, come up and stand. Stand.
Good afternoon, everyone. I myself was going to apply to be on this committee, but I'm on the CPAC committee, which is the Citizen Police Advisory Committee. But my heart is with all you guys, okay? And I thank you guys for being also in your part and trying to be transparent and for community. Because the transit system in Asheville serves a very diverse group of people. Getting close to Memorial Day, let's think about the veterans, present veterans, disabled veterans especially. And let me start in this other phase by saying first that there are some fantastic bus drivers, sweetest that will just step in and just do it. Okay. But unfortunately, I've had contact with the veterans. Okay, I've been injured more than once. And I really wasn't But I never received a phone call from you, and I was kind of disappointed and everything, but that's that. But something that is an issue right now, I believe, is speed of certain drivers. Because I'm listed on the paperwork. I was trying to get on the bus, a bus driver barreling down the road. Okay, I got hit, and then she was mad at me. But this, I already know what to do about that. Also, there has to be a crosswalk in the area where I was trying to get to the bus stop. All right, so I'm already working on that. But the second one, a bus driver actually closed the door on me when I was trying to get off the bus because I still have an injury, and they know that I always go to the front of the bus. Okay, and he said I was going too slow, and shut the door in my face and took off. And I was trying to grab onto anything I could. Okay, and I've seen disabled veterans treated the same way, that they're going too slow, and they've been put on buses before, and that irritates me. It really does, because we are a town of veterans, disabled veterans. That's disgusting to me. And I really don't see that. I really don't. And I'm going to go to the VA really soon and see if there's a community outreach person that I can talk to rally for our veterans. I mean, we got Memorial Day coming up. We got Veterans Day. These are people that risk their own lives for us to be in America and have the peace that we do and the safety that we do. And for them to be disrespected, for me to be injured, is a no. But I thank you all for what you're doing. Again, you're fantastic, and we'll just go on forward with this. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for speaking up. Okay, do we have any other public comment for right now? If you do have a chance later, so if you think of anything. Okay, I guess we'll go on to our rider experience, where we talk about what we've experienced on the road. So, Jeff, if you want to start.
Yeah, I just want to begin with some appreciation. I've noticed a number of changes since our last meeting. I'd like to name 6 of them. The main door at the transit center is no longer scraping metal on metal. I appreciate that. The bathrooms have been painted, and I think porta johns were put in during that process. I'm not sure there's a lot of porta johns that show up there. And the porta johns was especially appreciated. There are new signs for cutaway buses. Bruce, I don't know if you've seen them yet. They're pretty awesome, I think. I heard a dispatch the other day to all drivers: watch your time, do not depart early, which was a subject at our last meeting about early departures. The new electronic signs at the transit center, I've noticed those, and I've noticed the removal of outdated postings on the buses. So I think there's just some amazing things that are happening. I do have some questions for our committee. Rider experience. So my bus was stopped for 10 minutes while the truck was unloading and could not get around. And so something that I am interested in is, and I know nothing about city policies or anything, but if we could have input into trucks that, if we could limit the times the trucks are unloading, I think that would enhance transit. I mean, there's one of our larger buses, a 35-footer, that simply could not get around the unloading truck. And so we waited there for 10 minutes. A question that I have for staff, Trailblazer brochures. I've been told that those are no longer being held at the transit center. And I'm just curious if they can, Trailblazers, for, this is what dispatch has told me when I've asked about Trailblazers, schedules. And I think they're very helpful. The Black Mountain was there, so I said, do you have the others? And I was told, we don't carry them, you have to contact Mountain Mobility directly.
Okay, well, we can follow up with Mountain Mobility. We had asked them to provide us
Right.
with all of the Trailblazer route information, and I think
Right.
that had been done, but I guess.
Just Black Mountain, and also so the dispatch knows that we're going to be getting them.
Okay.
I'm wondering if there was any confusion between the Trailblazer and the Mountain Mobility brochures, and which one's meaning. So,
I'm looking for Trailblazer.
okay.
Yeah, we should have it there.
Okay, thank you. But my last question, we're the trash can lids power washed? Or are they going to be power washed?
No, all of the ones at the transit center were.
Okay, so
They
they're,
were removed, taken back to the division,
okay,
closed down, and then put back.
okay. They're just in bad, I wasn't sure. They're in pretty rough shape, so, but thank you for that. Thank you for doing that. That's all I have.
Harvey?
Okay, I would like to compliment the drivers. This past month, they did they did extremely well. And I was on different routes that I don't normally take this month. But they did extremely well. Being the ones that I know, they definitely on everything they were doing. Driving experience was, great. I have one point that I wanted to ask Barry about. I was looking for one of the drivers that normally see every weekend for the last couple of weeks. I hadn't saw him, so I asked one of the drivers, where was Joe at? And I said, Joe no longer works here in Asheville. He's up in Maryland. I said, oh my goodness, what's he doing up in Maryland? He's switched some kind of way. Y'all switched drivers some kind of way.
I'm not sure.
They said they switched him out. Yeah, they switched him out with somebody in Maryland, and then somebody from Charlotte came here. And Joe was working in Maryland.
Are you referring to Joe Brooks, the general manager?
No, the driver.
Oh.
The driver. Boy,
I
I
didn't
don't know
know.
of anybody that we've transferred out in the last couple months, but I'll check.
That's what one driver told me. That's where Joe went, because Joe had been there for a while, since I got up there now. And almost, 2 years now. And they said they transferred him to Maryland.
And we do have an operation up there, so we may have.
Yeah, well, I didn't know his name or something like that.
Yeah,
Then they
so we-
brought in somebody from Charlotte here.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't know anything about that.
I'll check on that one exactly. The name didn't ring a bell. I don't have a ton of turnover. That will knock on wood.
Yeah, he's still employed, but
Yeah.
him and the family, they don't.
Okay. All right.
I miss them.
Yeah, well, when you get used to a good driver,
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
we did go through a bid change too. So we had drivers moving around a little bit on routes in early May, so,
Yeah, I noticed that.
you would have seen some changes there.
Okay, I appreciate that, Barry.
Yep.
Another area that I noticed since the buses are, on the upper level, that we have our signs where they say no standing and no sitting where the buses are parked. But there's been a number of people that are walking up and down through that. They just, just think it's a place to walk up and down through. They're not using like where people sit, the benches and everything.
They're
And
using the driveway.
they're walking through it. They're walking through that. I noticed a bunch of people are using that nowadays. Like they think it's right. Because they don't say no walking through there, they just say no sitting and standing.
Right. Well, I know it has been cumbersome, but theoretically, the last I heard was we were switching it Monday. So
Signs.
we're gonna switch the sides. We're gonna.
Yeah, I noticed that. I saw concrete truck on the other side of it.
Then the south side will be closed, so all of the routes that were coming in on the south side are now gonna move up to Ashland. And all the routes that were on Ashland are gonna start hitting their days on the north side. So it's gonna kind of switch around, which will kind of change that dynamic of buses having to cross people and traffic up there. We won't have to do that anymore, which will be nice. I'm always on edge when you have buses that are constantly interacting with foot traffic. And so that'll change in theoretically 1 to 2 weeks for the south side. It's not nearly as extensive as what the north side ended up being. So it should go much quicker. Now we'll be back on normal traffic. So that whole part of it's coming to an end. And then we'll move on to the next phase, which is the solar panels under construction in the building.
I ain't gonna come back and get hurt.
No, I tried to get, tried to have our security up there to just make sure they're keeping an if somebody's not paying attention.
Yeah.
People
And
have headphones on, earbuds on, they don't hear real well. So we tried to keep an eye on it. It's gone well so far. There's been a couple of close calls, but it's a dangerous thing. We have foot traffic moving where buses are running routinely. So yeah.
Let's see. The other thing I was wanting to ask you too, Barry, was this. I've asked this before, I got an answer, but it seems as though the drivers, they still haven't gotten the message. Like when, and especially since buses are on a level, and you get off the bus and, you know, you're trying to travel from the E1 to the S1, and it's down here, and the E1's over here. And then you ask the driver, you know, tell them, you know, you got passengers trying to catch that bus, and then they say, yeah, but by the time you get there, you know, you like waving on the sidewalk, you know, and he's gone. Is that, I asked one time before, is it okay? Yeah, and this is what I got. If you can see that bus, and that bus driver can see that bus, they're obligated to tell that driver you have a passenger or a passenger coming to you. So wait on the passenger. And that was when we just had, you know, two sides. But is it still the same since, you know, like, I have COPD, I have oxygen machine, all that, you know, trying to get up there at that bus, you know, like 500 feet away, you know, I'm steady. Is it okay for the driver to say, you know, I've got a passenger or two? You know, I wasn't home on that day, but, you know, come to catch that one. Is that okay for the driver to radio it to him and say, you know, you got a passenger coming?
I would double check. I've been at different operations where they do it both ways. Usually there isn't a normal communication from one bus to another. Unless you can flash your headlight and they can see it and they know you have a transferring passenger, two routes crisscrossing, something like that. I'll verify what I have seen. I believe we're not allowed to do it at this operation. But I'll go back and I'll double check with operations and see how they've been doing it here and what's going on.
Well, like I said,
One of the things you run into is, we do have two-way radio communication here, but many times that can get stumped on when you're trying to, because everybody hears what everybody else is doing. So you'd think it'd be easy to hear what's going on, but sometimes it gets stumped on. If I'm clicking the mic, same time somebody else is clicking the mic, they don't hear it. So then people get upset because they didn't hear what was going on and they didn't wait for you. Most agencies don't have two-way radio comm anymore. It's a closed loop radio system, so you don't have the capability of communicating from one bus to another. You have to go through a dispatch operations center. So let me check with our operations. If I remember correctly, they don't communicate bus to bus as a routine. But I'll get back to you. I'll check.
but I have seen the bus drivers, the S1, the S5, come from uptown to Biltmore Village down there. They will wait for a person passing home, S5.
If it's a normal transfer, you would,
They can
you
communicate.
should wait for transferring passengers, yes.
If I can add in here real quick, I know I had a similar issue where I was on W1 heading to transfer to the S1 around 6, no, it was about 5. And we literally were maybe about 30 seconds to 5 o'clock, and they did radio ahead to the station and the station related to the other buses. Yeah, for me to transfer, but then they didn't wait anyway. Because I literally hopped off that bus and was still standing there, and then as soon as I started running in tracks.
Yeah, see, that prolonged me for another hour, you know, as far as getting on.
A lot of
I know they do have, you know, two communication from bus to bus.
A lot of
And
them
the word I heard was, it's okay for them to do that.
Let me double check. I'm not sure. It sounds like it's being done, but sometimes people do
Yeah, they
things,
come do it, yeah.
you know. Let me check, okay?
The next thing that I want to go over was, I was at the station this morning, and we're, trying to get the things done that we need done at the station, as far as, digging it up, putting it back. And I was in, construction and roofing, 35 years. Anytime I saw somebody tearing something up, something was going wrong somewhere. I was at the station this morning, they're tearing up brand new concrete. And I said, I know something went wrong right there, so that was them behind. So I talked to some of the concrete guys, I said, they messed up, they said, yeah. So apparently, so it's gonna be a little bit longer, they were tearing up this chunk of concrete on the new concrete. And you don't tear new concrete up unless you make a mistake in plans or your blueprints. So they were tearing a hole in the concrete with the saws, and they were cutting lines in. So apparently somebody dropped the ball somewhere.
Yeah,
So, I was just saying, they just made, the operations go a little bit slow. I didn't know whether you do that or where.
Yeah, we had planned on actually, if everything had gone to plan, and there's been many things that haven't gone to plan just from once they got things dug up. Of course, I don't know, I'm not the contractor for that, but we've been trying to stay in communication with them. And, we were planning on Friday, opening up the northbound lanes and then running them until Monday morning when we close down the southbound lanes and then make that switch. And this will delay us to where we won't open up the northbound lane Friday. We're gonna wait till Monday morning. They'll have it all. They're either pouring it tonight or pouring it first thing tomorrow morning. There was an issue, and whether it was an issue with, they caught it, that actually the cement cracked. So they immediately knew they had an issue, and it may have been a load that sat too long on the truck when they're trying to get it in there. They're using chemicals to cure cement nowadays. There's a bad mix there. I don't know, but you know what? They caught it, boom, they cut it, they tore it out, and they're repouring it. So that's a good thing. It's caught early and taken care of. So theoretically, we'll be switching. Well, not theoretically. Everything goes to plan. We'll be doing it Monday. We'll be switching shut the southbound lanes or the south side lanes and reopen the northbound side lanes.
Okay, and the final thing, I was gonna talk about, Michelle, she's not here today, and, I was gonna address this to her. You might have been here, the WNC, bus stop, have they done anything to it? Have they fixed that bad spot out there where somebody might fall and break their neck? Have they, looked into it as far as relocating that bus stop?
Is that where the cement, the asphalt was?
Yeah, you
all
drop down
into out there?
They break the knee.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I remember hearing about
yeah.
that.
Cause like I said, the bus stop is too far away from the WC center. And that spot that's in the concrete, you can fall down, break your neck. And I was wondering if they had done anything. I hadn't been back out there yet.
no, we still need to look into that.
I just want to ask about progress on it. That does it for me for right now.
Let's start with, I've been missing a lot of my transfers by about 2 to 4 minutes, so I'm really glad that we're working on the transit master plan. I want to suggest, echoing my colleagues' comments here, that we need to consider that when the buses have to now cut the block during the improvements at the transit center, ask if they can stop on the other side of the transit center if there's passengers trying to catch the bus. We do need some flexibility while people are missing the buses because of what's happening. So, because there is a bus stop there, I think the Black Mountain bus uses on the side, that would be my suggestion, or the light.
You mean on the Cox Avenue side? Is that what you're-
Right.
Okay.
So some of the buses are cutting the block and then going past that side, but they're passing passengers and doing that. So that would be one suggestion. And then I'll just give an example of a very fateful day where everything happened but I have a friend who's a regular bus rider, and has served on city boards and commissions. I watched her get on the bus carrying a lot of intense energy, and she said that she saw the bus and felt like it was passing her because it passes her all the time. I'm also really thankful that we're negotiating a position for customer service improvements because we desperately need it. And on that same day, as I transferred off of the northbound bus with this friend onto my West Asheville bus, I encountered a close friend of mine who has a 3-year-old toddler. He was obviously agitated and really hot and sweaty, and she told me the story of trying to get on her bus, which was running 5 minutes late to the transit center, and wouldn't accept her transfer pass because it had passed 5 minutes ago. So it wouldn't accept her transfer pass, even though the bus was running late. That can't happen. So, my suggestion is that if a bus is running late, it accept transfer passes for the amount of time that it was late. That it seems totally amazing.
All right, I'll try to speak loud. So, a couple things I've noticed. The announcements of stops are inconsistently being played on the W1, W2. There are several passengers with visual impairments, and one of which, actually it was yesterday, missed their stop, and the passengers had to kind of try to yell to the driver to get the driver to stop, but it was a good distance for them to stop. So I believe that passenger was going to stay on the bus till it looped back around. I'm not sure if it was just, I'm curious is if there's a policy, if the system is broken or there's a issue with it, if we have a backup policy for playing the announcements, as well as, is this something that, it just autoplays? Does the driver have to do something to make it work?
The rule is if it's not functioning, then the driver should call out the location.
Okay.
That's how it should be.
But thanks for letting us
Yeah.
know, because it's a system that's set up that is automatic based on, I believe, on
actually brought up that point last meeting. Yeah, and I saw Goose Mobile out there. I was like, why is he missing this? Well, one not major thing, but in my neighborhood where the bus stop is, right S1 to work, there's a house with a gate around it, and then a tiny little bit of grass right there that the bus stop is on. And it looks like some trees, like some of the trees falling over a little bit on it, so there's a big pile of sticks and stuff, and grass hasn't been touched. I don't know if that technically counts as that person's property, or if we would maintain it since it's a bus stop. I don't know what would go about with that. But it's getting kind of crowded, and there's no other sidewalks in that neighborhood, so.
Can you send me an email what the stop number is?
Sure,
Or
okay.
email it?
It's 641. Yeah. And then in relation also to what you were saying about the announcements, I believe at least a bus that runs for W1 some of the times, usually in the morning, one of the buttons isn't working. Like you can see the little light pop up in the front. This is where it would say normally stop requested, like little orange one there, but the actual button, the bell doesn't ring and it doesn't say stop requested. I know the driver is able to still stop because I think there's a notification there for them as well, if I remember correctly. But, and like I said, it's usually W1 in the mornings, but we might just want to test some buttons because some of them just aren't working. And I think that's really all I have. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I want to talk about a story of one incident on a bus one day. It's kind of a micro story of a macro issue. So I was on the bus, the N1 coming into downtown. There was a woman on the bus that doesn't usually ride the bus, and she was riding the bus to the courthouse. So she was on the bus, and she didn't know about the bus app. And because there's no actual signage on the bus to tell you that N1 stop where it stops, she wasn't sure where she needed to get off to go to the courthouse. We were running late, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And so she needed to be somewhere else at 9 o'clock, and it was about 8:53. So she asked the bus driver how to get to the courthouse. The bus driver said, you have to go to the bus station and transfer to the E1 bus. And everybody on the bus said, wait a minute, you can actually get off at the corner of College and Broadway, and I said, I will walk you halfway to the courthouse. And I said, you got 7 minutes, so I'm gonna hit the time. We're gonna get off the bus, and I'm gonna point you in that direction, and I said, there's the courthouse. You should walk pretty fast. So I thought about how that day could have gone differently. Number one, I think this is a macro issue, is the bus stops about every block, N1 and N2. We stopped a lot. So I'm glad we're looking at routes, but I think we also need to look at stops. Because there's stops where we're stopping, and there's no terminus points of other roads coming out, and we're literally stopping a block away. And I've been on a lot of bus systems in my life, and the stopping every block to me, I sat there and said, why didn't we stop every block? And I ride that bus a lot, and other buses, and I think, why are we stopping so often? I've been on a lot of buses that never stopped every block. And I think as Asheville's growing, I'm trying to think about, gee, that's such an efficiency issue, it's a fuel issue, and it's an on-time performance issue. So we had stopped a lot for one person. The other thing was traffic, so of course that's a big issue when we think of on-time performance and look at the report. And I'm glad again about the route reconfiguration because I don't think the transit master plan or the plan that's been on has really encompassed the growth and the amount of traffic that you encounter on many of the buses that were on affecting on-time performance. And I think the reason why speeding goes on is because you have to make up time somewhere. So again, that morning we hit traffic coming into downtown, and that also slowed us down. So I'm hoping that we look at, instead of a silo approach to transit, is to look at it as part of all the growth and development going on, as well as all the traffic patterns, because we have such increased congestion. And sometimes I don't know if the stop times even make sense, or the number of stops make sense along the routes. Thirdly, I think what that story pointed out is we're on a bus where the bus route is not posted anywhere. So she had no clue where to get off and what was the next stop. It would be interesting if there was a bus thing with a landmark, right? With landmarks, which is here's the courthouse, here's other things. So when you stop, here's a map of it, kind of a visual representation of where she had gotten off and what were the major landmarks around there. The courthouse, and of course it's one of the important places that people are going. That's not And when she asked about the transfer, I was thinking about so many things isn't it kind of an outdated or outmoded system that we have, that we're all going to this one little place and transferring? And we're talking a lot about it, but I think that's an outmoded system. Maybe I'm wrong. But I envisioned if we had more crossing and cross town, but also crossing in our routes, we wouldn't have to go to that bus station and take, another 30, 45 minutes to get 3 blocks, which is really what would have happened if she went and transferred buses. And she was going to miss that bus, by the way, also. And it would be nice if the bus drivers knew when the next bus left, but again, we had more information, so I think it's an education issue. So I think that would be great too. And I thought about even things, thinking about points of crossing bus systems. Like the E1 is going to go down Patton Avenue, which is a block up from College, where the N1 turns around and stops. So wouldn't it be great if that was coordinated, where you can jump off this bus and get on the E1 bus there, which makes a lot more sense than going to the station. So again, we had a downtown bus shuttle, which is a micro bus system and a macro system, which isn't proposed in TMP till 2024. It could be a huge moneymaker because of all the people who are traveling around downtown from the south side to downtown that now Uber or Lyft. Wouldn't that be great if we would have had a shuttle system where people could go into downtown and start taking this micro shuttle system that would then move them around to these points?
I know we had already been talking about that in previous meetings, yeah.
Yeah, and it was not proposed, I think, until 2024 in the TMP, and I think it could be a moneymaker too. But so that's what I thought about. Wow, all these things that could have been more efficient and more effective just on that one bus ride. I think the outcome is because people stopped her and said, "Get off the bus," and we walked her there. But I think that's just kind of a point of mine. So I'm glad we're looking at routes and stops and on-time and the terminus points and intersections of our bus lines and micro systems and macro systems. And better education, I think, or better signage on the buses, especially if she was a brand new rider, not really knowing how to navigate. And to me, that's an easy fix of putting a route on the bus somewhere, which they aren't.
One way or the other.
Yeah, there's nothing else, right?
Contacts there.
Yeah, or something.
We've done that sporadically. but it
Yeah.
hasn't been very good
So
result.
that's something, as soon as you start saying that, I start thinking, I haven't seen maps go out for hours since I got there.
Yeah.
I guess part of the reason for not doing that though is because we're switching buses, so most buses they're not just assigned to one route, so, and then they get switched out sometimes, and so before you know it, you've got half the
Well,
route
I mean,
timetables
I don't
of the
know if we do
bus.
this, possible is like that driver's responsibility.
Yeah, they would just have it on a panel, right?
He knows what routines.
Right, so you just
He
flip it
can
on.
grab those iPads and
And
grab
you're
those.
responsible at the end of the day, and if your bus is done, you bring everything in.
Yeah,
It goes back out, there are definitely
yeah.
controls that we're done, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, following up on a couple of things that Jeff mentioned, I agree there have been some improvements there. On the vans, the signs that say ARC on the front and the side are excellent, but I still think we need a better sign for the route number on that side window with tinted glass. It's very hard to read. I think probably something in the front window if that's possible. And on the screens at the transit station, some of the lettering is too small and hard to read, at least for like me. And also, it doesn't show all of the routes, it shows the next 10 or so routes. So when I was there, for instance, it showed W1 was coming in 4 minutes, but it didn't show anything about W2, since that was more than half an hour. But it still would have been nice to be able to find out when the W2 was coming.
So,
And I think it's possible to rotate it, that's the way the old system worked. We show some of the routes and then it's flip and then show the rest of the routes.
so the new system so the two screens that we've installed, that's just for now, but with the overall renovation project, we're gonna be adding another 3 screens, I believe, at different locations on the platform. So there'll be multiple other screens for people to be able to see, one at the end of the platform and then another 2 kind of in midpoints of the platform. But we can work with IT to see if there's anything we can do about that. Part of what we're trying to do is make it a very hands-off thing where no staff person at the workstation or here has to mess with it. So it's just live feed from the website that's pulling the data from GPS and it doesn't require a human to mess with it or repeat it, on a daily basis. Because we don't want to add that burden to our operations staff. So that's what we're starting with.
Still seems to me you should be able to program it so it can show afterwards for 10 seconds and then flip it, show it there.
I mean, you don't have control over it, is what I'm trying to say. It's not our feed. But we'll look into it.
I have one more thing in the story to finish, Bruce.
Yeah.
My friend with the transfer, it's hard to sit in as secretary and also collect thoughts, but the second half of that story is because she wasn't able to use her transfer, she had to go buy a ticket book, and that she couldn't buy just one ticket book with her credit card because there's a cutoff limit, so she had to buy 2 ticket books because she was using a credit card. So my request is that folks be able to purchase one ticket book.
Are you saying that we're saying there's a minimum charge?
There's a minimum.
Oh, okay.
So folks who need to buy a ticket book have to buy 2 if they're using a credit card, not everyone is able to do it.
And they don't accept all change, so I've seen people go with certain, like, non-quarters, with nickels or whatever, and they haven't been able to purchase the tickets. They have to go and get like dollar bills for what they, and change it out.
So can we also accept legal tender for any tickets?
Coinage. Just
Yeah,
quarters
it should be
Are you
okay.
talking about on the bus or at the window?
at the window.
They're not accepting
They
change?
They had, see, it happened to me, but I could, I had other bills, so that was fine. But it happened to someone else, where they were like trying, they had some nickels, like 5 nickels versus a quarter, and they wouldn't accept it. At the window.
That's not a policy, and so, again, tell us when things like that happen, so we will correct it.
Yeah.
Nickels are nickels.
Is there, audio feed at the central station? I don't even transfer station, because as a visually impaired person, it's a nightmare, so I just kinda go out there and see if I can flag it on my bus somehow. But, for people like me who are visually impaired, how is this to tell when the buses come in? Because mine's just like, if I have my kid with me, she's my eyes, and if not, I just pray I can fit the bus. So, I mean, really, most of the time, it's kind of what to do, right? Or I just ask for help.
I have never, I don't know if any other transit station does that. We can look and see what we can do.
Of course, it's like the S6 buses here, blah, blah, blah.
Right, but,
Are you
You have so many different things that we have to look at.
Yeah. I didn't know if there was any announcements this month.
Yeah, and I know they try to announce what's coming in,
Yeah,
but then you need to know where that is.
yeah, sometimes
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I didn't know if they can say the blah, blah, blah bus is coming in to this area.
You know, one of the things, and I haven't talked to Jessica about it, but something I'd like to hear is a lot of money. Systems.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Calling.
Yeah, that's what I'm
She says calling it through that intercom, just blast it out there.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that myself. So, really good thinking of the train at DIA in
Right.
Denver, you know,
Right.
there's the announcements there. The ability to do that's out there.
Yeah.
It would be clear, concise, and not a mumble of blowing it through the mic out in
Yeah.
which is what happens.
Which would be helpful for anyone, even not.
Yes,
just-
for all of us, yeah.
I hate to wrap it up. We kind of went on for a little long on our comment section here. We're gonna move on to new business.
Can I make a motion that we move the bylaws to this month's agenda?
We'll say we're out.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. All opposed? Okay. Do you want to do that along with the application reviews, or how would you
Actually,
do that?
would you be open to having, making an invitation for anybody who's applied to announce their attendance?
Oh, okay.
And, invite them to,
Sure. Yeah, we can do that. Do we have anyone who has put an application in? We got 1, 2, 3, 4.
yeah,
Okay.
because they should not have to be like, if they want to stay, we should go ahead and make some decisions.
Okay. Yeah. All right. If we could go without. Oh, yeah. Well, sorry. We can go that route. Who would like to go first? All right. If you want to come up. Well, you'd like to come up to the stand right here.
If I take a moment to just say your name too, because it's not typing as fast as you.
Give you a card to my name. My name is Paul Grossbeck. When I was 6, my eyes were injured and I've never been able to drive a car. I have 2200 vision. I've been able to do a lot, including become a lawyer. We just moved here from Hawaii about a year ago. Honolulu has an excellent bus system. Out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. They frequent, they run from, 5 in the morning to midnight, there are, Hawaii is a real tourist place. You got, around the clock, different workers who can't fit cars, come in and go in different shifts. I've been riding buses here. We live over in West Asheville. And I've been riding like the W1 and the W2s to come into town, and then also connect with the N1 and N2 to go up to the only program up at University of North Carolina. It seems recently it isn't as good as it was when I started, I suppose. It may have something to do with the construction that's happening. But in any event, when I saw that there was an opportunity to join this group, and happy to see how it works. I think I can add to that. I'll tell you what I've observed and also suggest stuff as well. So anyway, that's my pitch. I don't know if you've seen my resume or not. Look at that. In Hawaii, I was the executive director of the HIV/AIDS program for 25 years. I was a lawyer. Before that, I was in Worcester, Massachusetts, where I went to college, and after getting out of college, I stayed there 20 years. I was a tenant organizer for 10 years while I went to law school. I wrote a bill to create a housing court department in central Massachusetts, and it only took 9 years to pass. But it passed. And now the entire state has housing court. And things like that. So I would be delighted and happy and honored to be part of this group. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Joseph Chesler. I'm a retired urban planner, environmental planner,
Michael Stratton. I live in Oakland, right off of Fairview Road, and I've got a bus that comes right in front of my house. And unfortunately, I don't use it nearly as much as I'd like to. And it's not because I don't want to; it's just a matter of inefficiency, I think, more than anything. I travel quite a bit. My wife and I love to get to all kinds of places all over the world. We were recently just in Vienna, Austria, and we had an opportunity to check out their public transportation. It was phenomenal. I was also in Aspen visiting a friend a few weeks ago. Again, just another big tourist town that was kind of like ours, but the public transportation system was immaculate. One of the things that I'd really like to see here in Asheville is a little bit more diversity on the bus. We mentioned that because we're happy with the diversity, but I think we're really missing the ball in terms of tourists. I don't see any tourists on the bus. And it's just because, again, if you're trying to say we get on the bus every hour, it's one that's running currently, it's pretty tough if you're on the go type of schedule like a tourist would be. Also, I think it's our duty to have a better system in terms of our environmental footprint. We need to get a little more people out of their cars and into the system, but it has to be a good system to do so. So what I'd like to do, if I'm given the opportunity to come here, is really think about the macro issues that are plaguing what we've got going on here, as opposed to some of the little stuff. Little stuff. For example, I bought a month-long pass the other day, and then I came to find out that it wasn't 30 days long. It's for a month. So there's little stuff like that, but more importantly, it's like that's not what people are thinking about on a regular basis. When I talk to people, everybody that I've spoken to, they think that the system would be better. So what do I bring to the table? I've got quite a few years of background in advertising, so that was an issue that just come up. I think I could really answer a lot of the questions, and I have a few connections that we could probably leverage to get some answers to some questions that are important. For example, in terms of the amount of dollars that we are missing out on because of the lack of utilization of the advertising space that we have is immense. There's also opportunity to leverage back and forth to say, well, if we allow you to advertise on this space, will you then provide bus kiosks? Will you provide shelters? Those are all possibilities, and I'd like to know why we aren't doing those things. Currently, my position is not doing advertising anymore. I'm actually in real estate. And one of the things that they want me to do in real estate is go knock on everybody's doors and ask them to buy or sell their house. And I'm trying to take a little bit of a different approach on this. My goal is to create a community organization where we're actively going and talking to people in the neighborhood. So I'll go and knock on their doors and say, hey, you guys are missing some sidewalks here in this neighborhood. There's a city council meeting that's happening. And by the way, I'm going to city council. You're welcome to come with me. I'd love to have your support there. This is all facilitated via an organization called Agents on the Run, with the idea being that I'm going to connect with other real estate agents in town, and 5% of our proceeds will go toward anything that's transportation or greenway related to let's fund some sidewalks, let's get a shelter. There's a lot that we can do there, but I think more importantly, the fact that I'll be in front of a lot of people on the community level and hear their concerns, and then be able to relay that to this group as well as council, I think is a really important thing. At the end of the day, we're a community, and we need to get as many people involved with the conversation as we can, and I've got a platform for that. So whoever we pick, I know it's going to be a great person. I'm just happy to see a lot of people here. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Wow. My name is Georgia Burks. I am in Asheville. I didn't like this place for a long time now. That I got older, I love it. I've been observing Asheville for a while, since I settled down. Asheville is growing. We have a lot of people coming in every day during the time with the buses. The most busiest times are early morning, late evenings. And those are the times that you need to compound more focus on what's going on in the city. We have problems with the streets, we have no sidewalks. So we're not just dealing with giving a person a ride to where they need to go, to work, to the doctor, or wherever they need to go. We're dealing with so many other things outside of the bus getting through that's going with construction. When there's not sidewalks, you got people. So there's just so much going on in our city. Our city is not just a city, it's a growing city. And it's reaching out to be a bigger city because we have people coming here every year. Millions of people are coming from Charlotte, New York, Chicago, all kind of places. They're coming here in a small city that we live in. This is a small city becoming a big city. So I would look at it as being a challenge. Because, I mean, you gotta study what's going on around us, plus attacking what's going on right then and there to make Asheville Transit better. And you can't do it just by guessing. A lot of times situations just have to come up and you have to deal with it right then and there to try to make it better. I would love to be a part of it because it's my city. Because I am a hard worker. I will accept the challenge of trying to get things done and study the city. And like I say, Asheville is home. You know that, right? It's a home city. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Okay, I think that's all of the applicants we have here today, right? Okay.
I have one question for Paul. I couldn't tell from your application, but I guess my question was, do you have other language skills other than English? Just curious.
No.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for Michael. Hey,
Hi.
you identified as Hispanic.
Yes.
Are you bilingual?
I'm working on that, so I'm
Okay.
conversationally able to get by. I'm going to Latin America I'll be able to get things done, but so basic conversation, yeah, but I wouldn't call myself fluent. There's people that are way better at speaking other languages than me. Thanks.
We have any other questions for applicants? Okay, should we just go ahead and move on to Bruce, or are we gonna?
Well, are we gonna make appointments today?
Yeah, that's the question. I thought it could be better to wait for, say, Red Thomas to get back, but, oh, I don't, that's a big decision.
So if I could add a couple things while you guys are thinking about this. So we've got 2 current vacancies, and then we will have a 3rd vacancy when Bruce terms off in June. And I think that's the only term that's pending. We're gonna have, we have 2 current ones now. We're gonna have one in a month and a half or so. So for a total of 3.
I didn't even leave you hanging dry there. I need to show some courage and just make a motion.
Okay.
I think we should. And I also just want to say how incredibly encouraged I am after 3 years of serving to have so many people apply and show up. That really means a lot. I know that it takes a lot of time to get off of work, to leave here on the bus, and that matters. I know that some of y'all have been to multiple meetings. That said, I know that we, in the past, have looked at like our ridership as being part of the experience that we bring and trying to like represent holistically the city across needs. And I was trying to look because a lot of y'all are riding the routes that I ride. So it really resonated with me that Georgia has been to 2 meetings and that she rides a network of buses often. So I'm going to make a motion to suggest to the multimodal consideration for Georgia's application.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Do we have any other appointments we wish to nominate today?
Yes, I'd like to recommend Paul President.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed?
So these recommendations will go to the Multimodal Transportation Commission, which is tomorrow. Thank you for everyone for applying. As noted by staff, there will be a 3rd opening in July, so we will have this conversation again next month. There are also a number of openings on the multimodal that are coming up, as mentioned before. So for folks who have a variety of experiences across modes, that's also a good way to let staff know if you'd like to be accepted for that or considered for that.
And also, one of the seats that's open on the multimodal is identified as a transit interest seat. And whoever gets appointed to that, if that person is not already a member of the transit committee, that person will also be a member of the transit committee.
It was essentially filling both of your seats, which
Yeah.
means going to two
And
meetings.
that's how Kim came up.
Right.
When she first applied for multimodal, accepted as one of the transit interest representatives.
Is there anyone currently on the committee that would be interested in serving on the multimodal transportation commission too? And if so, then perhaps submit an application. I'm just noting this because Rich, Lee and I were discussing this at because our multimodal commission is tomorrow. And we're going to talk about vacancies there as well. And he had suggested that each of the committees potentially nominate someone from their committee to serve on multimodal as well. So just throw that out there. That's an option.
I know I was originally interested in multimodal because I run and use the bus and attempt to ride my crazy 3-wheeler electric bike and visually impaired. So that was something I was interested in because I kind of use a bunch of stuff to get around. Aside from the intersection.
I don't know that there's necessarily you guys agree to nominate Elizabeth or not, or if she just applies.
Yeah, I think you would just apply.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to again say thank you to all the applicants who are here today. I'm really impressed with all of you. I made a spreadsheet of all of your skills and all the things that you bring, and I was quite impressed. So thank you all.
Okay, so it looks like we're going over to Bruce from updates from other groups.
Okay, at multimodal last month, we had, Jessica, transit master plan. We also got a briefing from the capital projects division on the sidewalk projects. There are quite a few sidewalk projects in various stages of update on some of the red tip construction, and particularly some of the flooding problems that they've had down there. Also, some improvements that are being planned along State Street to improve some of the intersections and the pedestrian crossings along State Street, which is heavily used transit route. I think those are the major things. Unless there was something else.
There is one more thing for transit committee, I think, if I can add. Just to make sure, because not everyone has easy, affordable access to email. I think it would be really helpful for, I'll speak up for Thomas, but also for staff to know what is the preferred best way for us to communicate with each other, as transit committee members, or for staff to contact us. Because if there's an announcement like a meeting were to get moved, and then we send an email out about it, and you don't have your easy access to email, and a phone call would be better, it would be really helpful to know.
Yeah.
So just everyone make sure you have updated contact information, please, and preferred communication to Thomas and Sarah.
Yeah, specifically, Georgia, I didn't notice an email address on your application. Do you have email?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
I know that I've had trouble with that too, so I kind of do need to know how everybody prefers to be contacted. Moving on, we're going over to the city staff and departmental updates. Sorry,
I suggest we go ahead and do the MPO item now.
sorry, I think
Yes,
The
I think that's
MPO
wise.
item.
We can move up to NPO.
Oh, that what we have motion for
Right,
there.
they've been here since 4 now. It's all
Yeah,
fine.
good point. All right, yeah, let's go ahead and get that. Let's go ahead and get that done then.
Thank you, Tristan.
No problem. I'm Tristan Winkler. I am the director of the French Mud River MPO. And I'm not sure what I'm supposed to present.
Sure. So, following the agendas that you send out, I noticed that 5307 grant funding amendment, was the language was going to be amendment on like allocation of funds, or whether it was going to be a requirement for collaboration. So I guess my questions are, did that go through, and what are the changes that can be expected?
Okay, just I guess for general background for folks, 5307 or Urban Transit Formula Funds are funds from the FTA that come to our region. It's a little less than $3 million. It's the MPO's responsibility to work with our regional partners that are eligible to receive those funds and figure out how those funds are distributed. And we work very closely with the City of Asheville staff. The City of Asheville is the designated recipient. So the change that's been considered is a slight tweak in the language that would say that any one of the sub-recipients, be that City of Asheville, Buncombe County, Henderson County, or perhaps in the future Haywood County, they can say, I'm not going to use these funds, but I would like to transfer essentially the rights to these funds directly to another sub-recipient. So that's a slight change in that normally if someone were to say, I'm not going to use these funds, or I prefer these funds to be used by another agency, it would go back to the regional pot and redistribute it to all the partners. So essentially the change being made is, I'm not going to use these funds, maybe you and I can work out an arrangement so we can use them collaboratively. Does that make sense?
Yes. So I guess, I'm trying to think about how to word this question, because it seems like now you can hand over your checkers to an opponent instead of dealing with it diplomatically and having elected officials and planners to look at it holistically. But is that, I guess I don't understand. How do I be brought to the table? It wouldn't just go, we're not at risk of returning federal funding.
No, it's meant to simplify the process. I mean, the thing that was kind of the catalyst for this is that Buncombe County, they provide ADA paratransit to the City of Asheville. So right now, the way it would work is the city of Asheville would essentially, they would be passing money back and forth to provide the same service. This just allows it where Buncombe County says, hang on to those funds and you're going to provide us day-to-day paratransit. Is that?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons why the city and Buncombe County proposed this amendment to the formula language. One of them is because it reduces an administrative burden for us, because the city is the designated recipient. We get the money from the feds and dole it out to all the counties for their services. And so, in some instances where we're getting the money and then we're doling it to Buncombe County, and then they're basically paying us back for a service. So it's like we would just keep it instead of it going back and forth 2 times. It's kind of hard to explain, but there's an administrative reason. The other reason we're interested in doing it is because the Transit Master Plan has 3 instances of recommending route extensions into the county. And so what we're trying to work out with the county is them paying essentially a portion, or paying for that route extension into the county. And it would use some 5307 funds to do that. So this would allow us to just keep a piece of their funds that they would have gotten and not have to give it to them so that they give it back to us.
So to clarify, Buncombe County is going to start paying for county service.
Potentially. We're in discussions with them to talk about the extension for, it goes up New Leicester Highway, up closer to the Angles. There's another small extension into the county on the S6, and then there's one more that I'm also forgetting, E2. And so we're discussing with them if we could use some of their 5307 urban funds to help fund those extensions into the county. So this is basically trying to make it slightly easier for us to work with them and not have to go back through the MPO board to make that arrangement, that financial arrangement.
Right. It's a relatively minor change, but we're hoping it can foster more collaboration. As Jessica pointed out, and as I identified in your TP.
It's a positive thing, I think.
I'm helpful to have this information, but why are we discussing it here?
The way that I read it was that, I know that Buncombe County coming into the pool of 5307 funds has meant a gap in funding that we have relied on for Asheville. And it could have been transferred from county to county without it coming back to the city. And I was concerned that was the way that the language would change. What would prevent Buncombe from paying it to Haywood? Obviously, Asheville's in Buncombe, but it seemed a red flag.
Well, the MPO board has not voted on this yet, is that correct?
No, they'll be voting on it on Thursday.
So the MPO's technical committee, of which I'm part, and we have one other seat on that group as well. We voted to recommend this change. I mean, there were some concerns about whether or not there should be limitations on it because it could potentially lead to some kind of weird horse trading, checker game kind of thing. And I don't think, it certainly wasn't the intention that Buncombe County and the city had when we proposed this. But I think that if that starts to, if those sorts of things, first of all, if any of the sub-recipients want to transfer money between each other, it has to go through the city because we're the counting people, right? So we would know about it. What we did talk about though is that anytime there was a proposal to transfer funds, that the city would notify all of the sub-recipients to say, hey, this is what's being proposed, and are there any concerns? And they wouldn't necessarily have veto power or anything, but if there
formula that's used to disperse the funds in the first place is maybe what needs to be revisited. So, and I think the MPO tends to look at formulas and distribution of funds, you know, pretty routinely anyways, and I think we're expected to do that for 53 to 7 in the next couple of years, is that right?
Right, we said in 2020 we relook at the formula.
I would be so thankful for that, because right now we are providing service outside the city and not getting funding from the county, but the county is.
Our 5307 has been decreased significantly. We used to get, FY 2015, we got 1.9 million, and we are expected to get only 1.1 million this school year. So, it has caused a significant hit to the city, and our 5310 funding is also being reduced as well. That's only by about 30,000, but it repeatedly becomes more and more challenging for us to provide service.
Thank you for taking the time to be here and interested.
No problem.
The other main thing is that, because it's part of our scope, to look at, funding opportunities for transit, just, it really helps to have those emails sent. So maybe we can request that going to the chairs, some of the team.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are we ready to move on? Okay, let's go ahead and go over to Jessica. You want to start that?
So the memo in your packet, we've provided an update on a number of things in there. Transit master plan implementation update. The city manager presented the proposed fiscal year 2020 budget to the council on May 14th, and then set the public hearing for that. So that will be looked at again on July 11th, and I believe on May 28th as well. So if you are interested in providing any comment to the council on the budget, please feel free to do so. We, as you know, we are going to have approximately $1.2 million in funds to go towards transit operations on top of what we have now. And this would be to implement all the route reconfigurations for approximately $1 million starting January 2020. And then the additional $200,000 we plan to use for transit garage feasibility study. Also, that would provide the necessary funds for increased fuel for the service additions that would be implemented in January. And then a small amount of funding to have continued consultant services with Carolyn Flowers into the next fiscal year. And so that's my update on the transit master plan implementation. I'm happy to answer any questions about that right now. In your agenda, you should have a link to a PowerPoint presentation that has all of the information in detail about what you
Can you
provide.
talk about the transit master plan and the unfinished business point? Or are we doing that all now?
I'm sorry, I might have messed up.
No, it's okay. It's probably because it's an overlap and it's in there twice.
Yeah.
So let's move it up.
Okay.
So I need clarification, point of process. I'm just grateful. I mean, there's some amazing changes that have occurred since our last meeting and getting more services in the proposed budget. Process question is, I'm actually interested in asking if the transit committee would take a motion and actually go on record as requesting full funding for year one of the transit master plan. And that's not to take anything away from what we've done, but I think I want to push a little bit more.
If you make that motion, I'll second it. I think it's appropriate because it is in our stated goals.
I know that Jessica's in the middle of her report, so I'm not sure what.
That's fine.
Yeah. So I will make a motion that the transit committee communicate to multimodal, to city council, that we believe full funding in year one of the transit master plan, starting January 1st, 2020, is what we would like to see in the city budget.
I think the one thing instead of would like to see, I think would say is necessary for successful implementation of the complete transit master plan, as and that we see that, it has already been a compromise to move from July 1 to January 1.
I accept that friendly amendment.
Okay. Second.
All right, well then, discussion. Yeah.
I don't think this is necessary. I think decisions have already been made. See what purpose this serves.
I guess the reason I see it as being necessary is because it's our, job to advise, and, the decision that has been made is to not fully fund the transit master plan year one. It's a, gap of $600,000, and, let's see.
We have been saying for so long now that that's what we want. I think it's fair to put that to motion.
The 30% of our buses in before 8 o'clock, and that's not serving working people in Asheville. We need to get cars off the road, we need to connect businesses with employers, and so we can advise that, evening service hours are visible.
Bruce, could I ask what decisions you think have been made that we can't perhaps
Well, I
get
just
to
don't think
interchange?
it's realistic to expect city council to add any more than what they've already indicated that they're gonna next year.
Okay.
I mean, they know how we feel, they know, you know, about the whole thing about it. The money's just not there.
Do they know how we feel?
Sure.
Okay.
But I hear it's.
I think it's good to go
I
on
mean,
record.
they said transit's their top priority.
Yes.
They just don't have enough money to do everything.
Right. I'm just asking that we go on record. Yeah.
Are there any more comments before I call the question?
And just to be clear, just to clarify that, it seems like the one part that was left out was the extended service hours, is that correct?
Correct.
That's my understanding.
Right, that's the proposal is to just fund the route reconfigurations so that we can focus on on-time performance and reliability first.
And that's great. Yeah.
Right.
And I did have one question for staff is, I know some folks are reading this document at the same time I am with the, evening hours, but it seemed like there might be a discrepancy between all routes leading until 10 o'clock and whether or not all routes would actually go to 10 o'clock. Is that all of them in the final extended hour proposal?
Whatever is in the transit master plan is what is in there, so.
Yeah, it was not uniform 10 o'clock. Some were later and some were earlier. It was not in a couple of midnight.
Right. Should say it.
Appendix should have the full, like, proposed schedule
had the additional $600,000 ready to go in the budget, could we by January 1 have full TMP service ready to go, including extended hours?
So first I wanna say, I don't think it's 600,000, I think it's closer to 850,000. But again, we didn't negotiate, we didn't have a sit-down negotiation with RTPW about the full number. They gave us their first cost proposal, and we didn't, tug of war over it.
Right, and I'm very thankful for the negotiations because we never should have left that so off of it, so that was a big win, I'm very thankful for the negotiations.
So $3.7 million, half a year is 1.85 million. We are paying them $1 million for the route reconfigurations. So to added service hours, the added paratransit, the added fuel, I think it's probably closer to $850,000 that would need to be added.
But if we had that, if the council worked with the staff to make that happen in budget, is it doable?
There's two things that would cause it to potentially not be doable. One is we might not have enough buses in January of 2020 to pull it off. We do have enough buses to do route reconfigurations by January 2020. So we'll have 2 additional buses that are coming in November. So might not have enough buses. 2 would be the paratransit. We have to renegotiate our contract with Putnam County, and they would have a similar staffing up process that they would have to go through. And so there's kind of this asterisk on the paratransit thing for me because I don't know exactly what it's going to cost in the end because we would have to renegotiate a contract with them. They would also have to renegotiate a contract with their contractor.
So before we, vote on this, right now, there's a motion on the floor. I just wanna make sure I have a motion sort of right. Motion to advise on full funding of year 1, including extended service hours as part of successful implementation of the complete transit master. Right?
Oh, want to vote? Okay. All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And all opposed. Okay. Passes, but not unanimously. Unanimously. Oh my God. Sorry. I'm a little thirsty. My mouth's starting tight. So we are running a little bit low on time. If you guys have anything else to add for your section, we have about 15
I have a
minutes.
question about the electric bus update.
Yeah.
The
June 1st.
hours for the drivers, I'm hearing that some of the drivers have only had 2 hours driving in a parking lot, and we've had the buses for 5 months, so I just want to make sure if that's considered adequate, if it's true, for starting in a week.
We've gone through 4 hours of training with the drivers. Some of it's behind the wheel. A bunch of it's basically understanding the systems, how they work, and how you can drive in the most efficient, effective way. That is, and the time we put behind the wheel, if somebody wants to put more time behind the wheel, we don't have a problem with that. But it's basically a 35-foot bus. It's going to turn, it'll like a 35-foot bus. It has mirrors, it has a fuel pedal, it has all the things that a bus has. It's not, the drivers seem to be very pleased with how it works, how it handles. They're excited about it. our system is set up, drivers get relieved for lunch break. Drivers may not come back and run the same bus after 4 hours. So we have opportunities to switch in and switch out, do charging, bus back on a little later. And we've worked with Proterra to understand what the range is, whether it's really hot, whether it's really cold, whether it's a medium day, whether it starts out real cold and ends up real warm, how the range will work. And that's going to be a monitoring process we go through as well. But we're kind of excited about the fact that the way our system's set up, we think we can get them in and out and on routes, the S3, the S6, the 170, for sure, but there is probably going to be spaces when we've got to take it off completely and put a diesel on there, on those runs. We can find a way to make it happen. All the time we're going to try to do that. But if I can find a way to put them on something else for a period of time as well, we're going to do that. If they're charged and they can run, we're going to look and see what we can do. So all of that was taken into consideration. We looked at the S3, the S6, and the 170, and a lot of it is range. If I just relieve it after 8 hours, it'll go another 8 hours. I need a little longer than 8 hours.
Is that maybe a Title VI issue? Having those new buses on certain routes?
I don't know that that's going to be I don't know, honestly. But we've got 2 more gills coming in later in the year. I don't know that ever there was a consideration for the last new gills that you got, whether they had to go on certain routes to affect Title VI or not. The reality is there are constrictions to the vehicle and the routes that we run in the city. So
Safety is number one, so we're not gonna force.
we can't put it down that road, we can put it down that road.
So the 5 buses are running more like the equivalent of 3, the equivalent of 2. So we look at the whole bus equation for how many buses you have, how many routes, how many in the cache, they're not really functioning like 5 buses.
No.
They're functioning like less than 5.
Less than 5. I'd probably say 3. And in the original purchase of these, if you go back and look at the documentation online, that's what they knew that was coming.
Okay.
They were fully aware that that was going to be an impact. The people who went through the purchasing process here at the city.
Yeah, has operational inefficiencies.
Yeah, I'm sure. Everyone was fully aware of that.
I don't know that everyone was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you
You
want to ask
remember
committee
about
members?
the maps and schedules?
Right, so the maps and schedules, we released an RFP or an RFQ a few weeks ago, and all of the packages were submitted today. We have 3, yeah, it was closing today at 5, so we got at least 3 proposals that we will be going through, and we were wondering if anybody from the committee would be interested, it's not a requirement, in helping review proposals. We've got a group of people, Marcella, someone from our IT department, and someone from communications department who is familiar with graphic design and such to help us review proposals, but if anybody's interested. What do you want to do? Okay, cool. Marcella will get back with you.
Yeah, I would love to,
We talked a little bit about the art station underground project, and that should be wrapping up here in the next couple of weeks. And the city's also put out the bid for the above ground renovation. That was put out on May 16th. It closes on June 6th, I believe. And the capital projects department intends to go to the council on July 9th with a contract for that construction. So we'll keep you guys posted on that. But there will definitely be a break in time between the underground construction and the start of the above ground. Okay, so we talked about electric
bus shelters, and we will be meeting with the capital projects department to look at budget. We definitely have at least $150,000, potentially a little bit more, that we're going to look at some options for how to spend, and come to you guys with some options, and you guys can give us some feedback on how we get stuff done. And then staffing, so we hired a new grants coordinator who was here earlier, but she ducked out. Shannon Mulkey, and she started on Tuesday. No, today's Tuesday, last Tuesday. And she's replacing Camille Miller, so she's getting trained right now. And as far as the transit planning manager, I will say that we've made an offer that I'm waiting to hear back on, but I'm very hopeful that we will have an announcement for that position in the coming days. I think that's it for me.
It's making me think. Anyone have any comments on anything else before we move on to Barry? No? Okay.
Not really. Basically, we've got in our report that we're right around 60% OTP. Obviously, the construction that happened going around the block affecting our OTP. We were in the 33-hour missed trip, which is kind of what it's been running since I've seen from like January, February. We had a bad March. But it seems that we're having more infrequent breakdowns. I believe our maintenance manager, Steve, here today, and we used to see him around. He's got a pretty good grip on what's happening out there, and we are making very good progress there. We're continuing that, not letting it. So putting 5 pair of buses on the road will help us to spending more time on individual buses that need more time spent. So there's definitely some positive things happening. I know I'm happy to see it. I know Steve's happy to see it. Some of you are seeing some of it. We're not there yet. We know that. We're going to keep pushing to get there. I appreciate the input we get from you. It keeps us focused. It allows us to relate to our employees, what the expectation level is, and for us all to improve what's happening here, so we can get to the point where we do have a very well done system for the city of Asheville and residents. That's what we're shooting for. That's what I'm shooting for. And I got a pretty good team with me. We've promoted someone internal to our safety manager position. Sam Bird, I don't know if you've interacted with him. He has been here for a while, and he's done many different things and had his fingers in a lot of different stuff with that operation. And having him focused on safety in our training department, I think is a good thing for us. He's a very dedicated and knowledgeable person who will have a big impact for us. So the suggestion in the budget for the January changes, those positions, I absolutely believe those positions that we've asked for in that, and work with the city to fund are positions that will make a big impact to the system. They can change attitude, and we need to do that on people who interact with the public, how they interact with the public. And I hear it from you. You have drivers that just, how it comes out of their mouth is wrong. It really is. Some people are like that. Okay, I've got some tools in the toolbox that I am pulling out, and have always had to pull those out for those individuals. And we'll pull them out, and we'll try to make those changes. The other thing that's coming is Smart Drive. There's an install of that later this month. And that system, we never presented that here, did we?
But we'd like to present it to you guys in more
you ever heard of Smart Drive or Drive Cam, anything like that? No? Google Smart Drive. Take a look at that. It's a system that it creates a record of driving habit. Whether you're hitting the brakes hard, you're taking off too fast, or you're going through dips too fast, or you're making turns and hitting curves. And it gives drivers an opportunity. Punch a button and say right into the front of their bus. Nobody has to know. Low-hanging branches at wherever. And that record comes back to us. Then we can communicate with the city, work with that, or send our people out. Do what we have to do to work on those things. Bus stop down at blah, blah. Those kind of communications for a driver, it's easy. It's not a piece of paper they gotta fill out. You know, it's easier for them to communicate with us that way. A lot of things can happen. And I've rolled Drive Cam and or Smart Drive type systems out at several different operations. It changes bad habits.
I'll also just say that I'm super thankful for our drivers. I know that we're all really eager to have enough buses to run an efficient system. It's going to come hugely for all of us.
Yes. You know what I'm looking forward to the most? Now I'm gonna put it out there. I won't get it coming back at me. But that's okay. It's having enough buses to have the opportunity to affect on-time performance with extra bus, extra driver to help that. And how we do now, these people haven't done that. So they've got to be taught how to do that efficiently. And we're in the process of doing it. We have beefed up the driver ranks. I have more drivers on the ranks right now than they have had on in a year and a half. By 5. And they were needed. And it's going to give us an opportunity as we get the fleet in the shape it needs to be able to put something out there that can do a positive impact on the route that's running down. That's the impact we're really going to see fairly quickly, that we can start pushing that OTP.
Yeah.
Can I ask a series of questions?
Yeah, we're at 5:30 right now. So.
All right, I'm going to be quick. So, there's a lot of questions. Is the bathroom cleaning sign off in place?
The bathroom
Cleaning sign off. You thought the sign off was the
Yeah.
instrumental part.
I'm rotating through a couple of different people,
Yeah.
but Steve and I have had personal conversations with the individuals that are supposed to be record of dispatch following up, and myself walking the platform, taking a look every morning, mid-afternoon. So not completely in place yet, but definitely clearly defined what our expectation is.
And how many times per day are the bathrooms being cleaned?
3.
And is that enough?
For right now, I think so, especially with monitoring for dispatch, because if we need to get back in there, we'll get back in there too.
Is the bus stop repair cleaning process in place?
Yes.
Okay. Have all bus stops been examined for cleanliness or disrepair or anything?
Every week, every bus stop is looked at. There are some places we need to, there's some things that are being identified, we need to talk about what to do with
Is that
shelter.
data available? So, I mean, I see graffiti, I may think it
Yeah.
needs it, maybe you don't. Can I look at your data? You don't have to answer right now.
Let me see if I've got it all in one location.
Is a bus cleanliness checklist and the cleaning schedule for the buses itself? Because the same dust that I reported 4 months ago, is actually the pile of dirt is still on the bus. So that bus cleaning checklist, is that in place?
Steve?
It should be, yes, they have daily cleaning sheets, yes.
Okay. Can I take a look at that cleaning checklist?
I can get them in a little bit.
And I don't need to see the results. I just want to see what's on that checklist.
Oh,
because,
okay.
Because the dirt that I'm seeing, I must not be on the checklist. I see lots of dirt on buses, and so I'm assuming it must not be on your checklist. So I'd like to just give my reflection on your checklist.
Okay.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
I have one quick question. I'm putting you on the spot, Barry.
Okay.
Jessica, you said that the keep qualification first in hours was sort of a possibility. Can I put you on the spot? How many more buses do we need to fully implement the year one with the extended hours?
so that's, well,
Yeah, that's
So
what
that's
I'm.
you know, and that's something to think about here, and I know you know about this. Yeah, it is something to think about. When
Yeah.
you have a service line, I don't know if I've done this spiel here. Let me do it real quick. Then it is,
We gotta wrap up this
Yeah.
period,
Okay,
let's
let's-
want us to
okay,
get out.
yeah.
Unfortunately, we're going to move on to public comment real quick. If anyone has anything else to say before we adjourn this meeting out.
Real quick.
Yeah, if you want to come up to the stand.
Hey guys, I know we're trying to leave, but, and you guys might have already done this before, but, it sounds like in this meeting, as per a lot of government meetings, we're always trying to find where our money's gonna come from. Right now, we're in the process, or the county and the city are in the process of deciding what's gonna happen with TDA funds. We all know that the TDA funds have to go, right, they have to go toward, anything that's, tourism related, or something that can get people to, book a room in Asheville. I really think that this committee should ask for that money to be spent on some infrastructure here. In particular, the overhead lines, the overhead, charging lines, because at that point, you get the electric bus running on the overhead lines for 80% of its route. It can jump off the line and then complete the auxiliary parts of the route. That right there is, getting you 100% of the bus, but it also, at the same time, opens up our opportunity to reinstate light rail and trolley systems, like we used to have back in the 20s in this city. So I think it just gives us a lot of opportunity to add to the equation here. If we're able to do that, we have a very efficient transportation system. We will get tourists to ride it. We'll get a lot more of our locals to ride it. At that point, the advertising space inside the bus becomes exponentially more valuable. So just keep that in mind. If you haven't already done that,